Clifford has salvaged something. It's 117 to 117, Ambrose.
Now you go for the jugular, Tim. That's a fantastic goal. High ball in from James O'Donnell.
No more than
down by the star. And a great finish by David Clifford. Bottom left-hand corner, bullet. 117 to 117.
Yeah, what will the referee play?
There we are, lads. Dara, David Clifford, I mean, he's not doing anything to dampen the hype or expectation around this fella. What a finish.
What a finish, yeah. He's not really helping his case trying to stay below the radar, is he?
No.
I suppose before the championship started, we were trying to say, give this fella some time. It might take a year or two to bed into the senior championship football, but obviously, look, he's a special talent and he's up to the manner born. Very rarely will you see him do anything foolish. Even that goal was hugely important in the Kerry context, but even after that, he received the ball in the play, in general play, and he took the right option again, and he sets up the play. He just plays with a head on him that's not 19 but 29. You know, he has that ability. He thinks his way through games better than most players, and you know, Kerry people are very, very grateful to him for giving them a kind of a lifeline, a rub of the green, as Paddy O'Shea used to always call it. And I think you probably don't go through championships without getting that somewhere along the line. So they have a lifeline. Even a minute before that, and even 20 seconds before that goal was going in, my mind in Clonus yesterday was starting to drift, saying, you know, are we going to be playing county championship, club championship like sooner than we thought? You know, is there going to be a lot of vitriol being poured out again, you know, towards management and stuff like that? And this changes things, and it makes an event of the game in 2 weeks' time in Killarney, and that's to be welcomed as well. Oh,
well, I'd say in Sky Sports and in GA headquarters, they're down on bended knee praying to a poster of Clifford right now, saying thank you. He's a ready-made superstar, David Brady.
Yeah, he is, in all fairness, and probably he's carrying a mantle now that probably no other Kerry player, and it's has probably ever brought into his first competitive 4 or 5 months of football. And
I don't remember the hype around Gooch as a minor being the same as what Clifford was. Like, everybody knew who Clifford was last year.
Yeah, well, if you look at it, how many minors did he win in a row? You know what? And I met him after last year's All-Ireland minor final, outside in the Hogan stand, just before the throw up to the senior game. And Jesus, he's a big unit. He's a big unit for a minor. Never mind what he's going to turn out. In my mind, I said, and he's turned out. And you know what? He's been living off scraps to a degree.
Yeah.
God forbid if he gets a serious supply of ball or a serious platform or a serious splurge of momentum. You know, and it does. You know, Dara played with Kieran for years, and you have this understanding. For he knew exactly where he needed to be, and he knew what Donaghy was going to do.
Yeah. And
it was like he's been there all his life, and it was brilliant. And he has thrown a lifeline to the Super 8s to a degree, and again Kildare and Galway before it. But it's something that Kerry have done repeatedly, again and again and again. And man says my own county has been the bearer of it when all hope was gone and lost, and it's not a hit and hope from James Donoghue. He knew where he needed to put it. He knew the flight of the ball, and if he did nothing else for a man that was dropped, he definitely played his part in what was an unbelievable finish.
Yeah. So, like, is Clifford missing much in his game, Dara? Like, where does he go from here? So 1-5 the last day, 1-3, and like an epic kind of contribution yesterday. Even the points, like, it was Clifford again who scored that monster score to bring it back to 4 points after the Carl O'Connell goal on 60. So they're down by 5, and again it's Clifford who takes on the shot, and it's an amazing finish and strike, and he's just so balanced and everything else. And you talked about the maturity in his play. So, you know, where does he go to from here?
Well, the only comparison I can make really is Maurice Fitzgerald. David mentioned the fact that Clifford was above the radar very much as a minor. Maurice would have come in at probably, and no more than the Gooch as well. They came straight in 18 on to 19 years of age, straight into senior teams, into a half-decent senior teams. But they didn't have that minor career, you know, or they didn't have the Hogan Cups. They didn't have that spotlight on them as much. Maurice would have kicked, I know, the 10 or 12 points in the months of final this debut season. Gooch obviously set the world on fire in 2002 in his debut season at senior level. And, you know, if Clifford, man, he will make mistakes. And I'm sure even if you look very closely at the game yesterday, the gurus in the stand will pick out the odd mistake, but they're born of, I suppose, possibly immaturity, maybe taking a shot on when it's not on. But then how do you explain his point in the second half? It probably wasn't on for most people. He just bombed it over the bar, and it was the right decision to make at the time. So he seems to have an awful lot. He's obviously a very two-sided player as well. And his biggest attribute is unselfishness. You mentioned Kieran Donaghy. He is the obvious successor to Kieran Donaghy in the full forward line for the next 10 years. And he has that ability to catch ball, but it's the unselfishness. He sees the pass, he gives it off left to right, left hand, right hand, left leg, right leg. He's a very cool customer and good footballing stock as well in the background there, So, it's onwards and upwards for him. He's going to have to, obviously, a demanding public are going to ask that he reproduces it again and again and again.
Yeah.
But I think he's capable of carrying that.
Yeah, it's an amazing thought, and just still 19 years of age. So you mentioned just before the Clifford goal that you were thinking about the knives being sharpened. And for Fitzmaurice, and this is something you can both, I'm curious for both your takes on this. Like Fitzmaurice, given that he went with Griffin versus McManus 1-on-1, and McManus pops up with 1-on-1 with 1-1 in the first few minutes. Fitzmaurice would have been butchered for those tactics. Like they were actually incredibly brave tactics under the circumstances to go with. He obviously felt it was the right thing to do, but it's very easy on a Monday to tear that plan apart when you come out the wrong side of things. Or certainly if Monaghan had won, given what McManus did in the opening couple of minutes, that was the defining element in this game. Fitzmaurice's decision to go man for man. I don't know when the last time, Dara, that McManus had a 1-on-1 like that.
But I don't think the alternatives are as strong as Fitzmaurice's critics would suggest in Kerry. And I really can't stress this strongly enough. I would ask people that are criticising Fitzmaurice and his management team, and they're in this together, to really reassess, say, what's the alternative? And I would really ask them that question. And obviously I'm coming from a position where I would have a certain relationship with Fitzmaurice, huge respect for the guy. He is a brilliant manager, and we've seen that back in West Kerry with schools teams and everything like that. And he makes a decision like putting Mark Griffin on Conor McManus, and probably judging by what we saw in front of us yesterday, asked Peter Crowley to do some form of sweeping. But Kerry, it's not in our DNA for some reason to play sweepers, and we haven't a refined system like other counties have, and it's that simple. And
but were they not very defensive when they won the All Ireland, Dara?
They didn't, and this is the big fallacy of the 2014 All Ireland final. All Kerry did in that final, if you look at it again and again and again, was to ask their backs to stay back. There were no sweepers. There was nobody given a specific role of saying, you drop back and leave your man collect short kickouts at the other end of the field. They asked people to they asked their two wing backs to be defensive, they asked their centre back to sit. And it wasn't a pretty game. It wasn't a pretty game because both sides were kind of mirroring each other. But at the same time, there was no such thing as a sweeper. Thomas Sullivan, who played a very fine game yesterday, was asked to play a sweeper role last year against Mayo. It was a disaster. And Peter Crowley, to different effect, Paul Murphy has been asked to do it every now and then. It just hasn't. They haven't refined it enough. And in the way the game has been played, Galway have a very good sweeper system. Tyrone have a very good sweeper system. Dublin play. Cian O'Sullivan has mastered it for years. They asked Aidan O'Mahony to do it a number of years ago. It just never really seemed to work. It's not. It's in effect, you see it in even underage club games in Kerry, they try it without great success. We would have tried it our 70-odd time at the club level, and we don't seem to have the apparatus to be able to play this kind of sweep. Kerry are at their best when they're going for teams, when they're playing football. And then the criticism is unforgiving when you try and play a sweeper system. And that is part of what's feeding into the criticism of the management at the moment. Yes, there seems to be uncertainty, but the players themselves, actually, I can't think of one player who in County Kerry, one defensive player, who would be capable at the moment of playing that sweeper system, a la Cian O'Sullivan or others, and it's an easy one to have a go at Fitzmaurice. He went mano on Conor McManus, which, is obviously, not going to yield great results. I thought Ronan Shanahan tightened up a small bit and was unfortunate for two of the frees that he conceded. I thought they were harsh enough calls yesterday in the second half. But, until such a time as they have some refined system, last year's minor team had a kind of a swarming system where they played quite defensive in the knowledge that they could get the ball up the field to the likes of David Clifford at the other end of the field, and they did appear to have a defensive system. But we still haven't found a way of playing defensively well enough for it to be our first go-to game plan. And I don't think that's going to change in 2 weeks or within the championship either.
Dara, on that, I think one man for me over the years that has probably played the sweeper system from a Kerry point of view to the best of his ability because of his athleticism, his work rate and his ability to link between defence and attack was Donncha Walsh.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been given a defined role. He was nominally wing forward. He would have been asked to rove about, and Donncha had this great ability to find himself in pockets of space from, let's say, sidelines and short frees around midfield, where he was more often than not the receiver. I think the game has moved beyond that now a bit. He's never been asked, and he's 34 years of age now, and he probably is not going to ever play a sweeper, an out-and-out sweeper for Kerry. But our two mainstream events, or our attempts at playing sweepers, were Thomas Sullivan last year and Peter Crowley to a lesser extent this year, and Aidan O'Mahony every now and then over the latter 2 years of his career. And you could never deem it a success. I think Kerry kind of trying to depend on winning possession of midfield. I think that was the big issue, especially in the first half yesterday, where you had 3-1 situations, 4-2 situations, 6-2 situations, white jerseys to green and gold jerseys yesterday. Monaghan seemed to be able to get to the pitch of the ball a lot better than Kerry did to the break, and you can put that down as hunger or otherwise. And it is related, I suppose, to the changing of goalies. I think Kerry played yesterday under their own kick-out as if Shane Murphy was in goal, not as if Brian Kelly was in goal, and they probably it was a big ask of Brian Kelly to execute what Shane Murphy would have been practicing for maybe 6 months before that.
Why was that switch made?
That switch was, I would imagine, made based on the performance against Galway the week beforehand. And, you have to take into account a lot of Shane Murphy's kick-outs from the Galway game hit the ground and skidded out over the sideline in a wet day. What's to say that wouldn't have happened even yesterday if the day had been wet? I think these are gambles that have been taken by very bold management, and some of them are backfiring, some of them are working, and they're still very much a team. Even 73, 74 minutes into the game yesterday, you're saying they're struggling to find their identity as a team. Players who to be top quality footballers, just not finding their rhythm within that system. And, it's going to be a huge challenge to turn it around. Maybe Clifford's goal yesterday is the spark that turns it around.
David Monaghan should have won that game. Is the other, overriding point. They could have put that to bed in the first 20 minutes very easily, and they'll be kicking themselves about how they let the thing get away from them at the end as well.
They went in, was it 4 points up at half-time? They should have been at least 8. And they missed some gilt-edge opportunities in the first half. It was because Kerry were nowhere near at the pitch of the game. There was the dominance, there was nothing from a Kerry perspective around midfield. They were getting no primary possession, even no secondary possession, and Malachy O'Rourke would have been saying to his guys, we've had opportunities, but they're still there for the finishing. Yeah, and they will be kicking themselves, and it's they're a long time on the road now, and again...
Yeah, it was almost an inexperienced kind of performance in a weird way. And
you say it was very inexperienced, but this team has been, and the players and the what they have, but you know what, it's easy to sit in a room, and you do sit in a room and you say, how do we finish out a game in scenario A, B and C? Yeah. The greatest example I've seen of a team finishing out a game was probably the time Kerry played Mayo down in Limerick. They were in the opposite situation, where they were the ones ahead, but you look at it and going, who took a black card in the last 20 minutes? We heard the commentary there from the Kerry radio. The ball was picked up on a 20-yard line. It was picked up. It was given to David Moran. It was given to James Donoghue. In situations like that, you can't let it happen. It's not about even taking one for the team. You play with your brains, but sometimes you play with your brawn as well, and you make the game as physical and as a war of attrition in the last 7 or 8 minutes. And Monaghan didn't manage to do that. And again, and let's be honest, I thought Roy Began yesterday was outstanding. I seen things happen on a football pitch yesterday that I've never seen in my lifetime. And from his accuracy to his length, his direction, his free taking, unbelievable.
There was a 77-metre kick out at one point, which was fairly impressive.
I go to myself, I don't think I ever seen a ball land 77 yards.
Metres.
Or metres.
Better again.
But let's be straight. There was times in the last 15 minutes where the Monaghan kick-out was turned over. Yeah. It shouldn't have been.
So did they panic? Are they still too reliant on McManus when it boils down to it? Is there something else?
Well, look at Rory got a kick from 55 metres out nearly. He missed 3 opportunities, a lot closer in, to put the nail in the coffin, and a few screws in at the end of it, because you never have a Kerry team beaten.
Yeah, Dara, what was your reading, Monaghan, then?
My reading on why Kerry came back into the game was, you have the likes, then 2 specific players in the Monaghan team, Dermot Malone and Ryan McInnesby. They worked so hard tackling around the place. I think they're actually giving Conor McManus, who is an absolutely fantastic footballer, they're giving him that slight luxury. I'm not saying that he's ducking his tackling responsibilities, but the likes of them two, Dermot Malone and Ryan McInnesby yesterday, from my observations, gave him a bit of an out where, Paul Gainey, for example, might not have that. He's expected to do that tracking as well. Which would be expected of him as a bare minimum. But McManus is getting the ball probably fresher than most other forwards in the field, in the sense that, yes, he has certain responsibilities to track back, and yes, he does track back, but he also has the knowledge that Dermot Malone and Ryan McInnesby are outside and they're fighting like dogs for him. You look at Shane Carey yesterday, he was taken off in 62 minutes. I think he was just after making a tired-looking pass or a tired-looking mistake, and he gets taken off. These lads are emptying the tank, absolutely, and Carey was gone in 62 minutes. Malone and McInnesby were fighting, and Kerry probably, if it's a one fault that that this current team don't have enough of those scrappers that are probably making life easier for the gilt-edged players, like the gilded players, the Cliffords, the Donahues, the Gainies, and it's a luxury that teams can't afford the way the games are played. And I think that's what happened on yesterday. I think there was an element of fatigue there, and that Kerry just played that long ball, and obviously that changed the course of the game, or to change the complexion of the game. But I would give Kerry credit for hanging in there and for still being within touch, because there's no way they should have been within touching distance of Monaghan, given the trend and the current of the game for the first 65, 66 minutes.
Yeah. Legs-wise, again, they only brought in 3 subs.
Yeah.
In conditions like that, maybe you haven't got the strength and depth in your panel. But to only bring on 3 subs, you can hold up play. You can stop the momentum, and the momentum really was one. The goal was the killer. But coming up to that, Kerry were on the ascendancy to a degree. Anthony Maher made a difference. He scored a massive point. None of the Monaghan subs that came on scored. Again, you can always look back and say we should have, but it's the reality. They should have killed the game out.
It won't make fun watching that last 10 minutes. So they were 5 points up with 10 minutes to go, and Kerry had pulled that one out of the fire. That game probably stole the title of best game of the weekend. Everybody was expecting it would be at Healy Park. In the end, it finished Tyrone 14 points, Dublin 114. It didn't catch fire in the physical stakes the way people maybe expected it might. Dublin now 25 matches in the championship, unbeaten, very much on course for 4 in a row. Out of Crow Park, David Brady, how did they handle that?
I thought it was a classy performance in all respects, and the way they approached it. Again, you'd think that a team that has won 25 games, they're on undefeated, that there would be a certain amount of repetitiveness, and you just don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Again, from a Dublin team, and again, you have to hand it to Jim Gavin. He mixes it up. He has everyone thinking constantly outside, but internally, that seems to be the key. Again, Brian Howard, for me, I'm going, where are they getting these guys from? Like in nearly 70 possessions in 2 games, monumental. Merchant again, he's showed faith, but it was a classy performance, and if Dublin will get better, whether it's next month, next year, or the next decade, and they'll get bet in very similar circumstances right at the end. No one is going to steamroll these guys and be 6 up. Dublin have probably shown that they haven't finished games off as strong as they've continuously have over the last few years.
It's 2 games now where it was a weird one. It was probably a weird one, Dara, in that Dublin had that bubble of 2, 3, 4 points at all times, and you never realistically, certainly after the McCarthy goal, you never realistically felt Tyrone were going to come back. But equally, it wasn't like Dublin sprinted away, and they didn't sprint away from Donegal either. in the previous round. So there is a sense that Dublin are still doing a huge number of things right. Maybe aren't quite as good as they were in previous years, but frankly, they don't need to be, especially with Mayo gone and no one else catching fire, especially at the moment.
That seems to be the evidence at the moment, and even there's a train of thought out there, and David just said it there as well. Like, you waste and you pounce at the closing minutes, like Offaly 1982 against Kerry. But how do you plan for such a game? Like if Kerry or Mayo or any team or Galway are playing Dublin tomorrow, you want to go 10 points up and 11 points up before half time if you can. That's unlikely, but you can plan to hang in there as long as you can, stay on their coattails as long as you can, and then empty the bench with strategic moves and try and finish stronger than them and stuff like that. But how do you actually plan for games like that? You look what's coming off the bench with Dublin even over the course of the weekend. Like it's something else. Like there's former players of the year there. There's Cormac Costello who finished out in All Ireland for them a couple of years ago with 3 points. Kevin McManaman was always a game changer. Mick Fitzsimons was one of the best backs in the country. Paul Flynn, multiple All-Star. Darren Daly who got a massive touch in an All Ireland final to swing the balance for Dublin, and Michael Dara McCauley. Like these are serious. And you just look at the build up to McCarthy's goal, and even it looks a simple thing how Kilkenny just waits the pass, and look at all the games across the weekend, how many of those passes get intercepted. Kilkenny pops the pass into space so that McCarthy's charging onto it as he does at maximum pace, breaks through 1 or 2 tackles, gets a rub of the green on the way in to get the final finish to it. But that's a team so in tune with each other's rhythms that it's not funny. How do you even reach that level? That's a team that are just so playing within themselves. And the evidence is at the moment that Galway are the closest team to them, and that there's a collision course about to happen somewhere along the line there, as happened in the league final. But you can't plan to hold everything, stay with Dublin until 2 or 3 minutes from the end and then go turbo. It just doesn't happen like that. They're still the best team in the country.
Do you agree they're not quite where they were last year, David?
I think they probably are where they were last year, but I think the chasing pack slowly but surely adapting and getting better in the way they approach.
Tyrone certainly will feel a lot better yesterday than they would have felt after the semi-final last year.
Jesus, last year's semi-final was a non-runner, non-event, and again having it in Noma is worth 2 or 3 points to any home side.
The problem is you're going to have to beat Dublin and Croke Park to win the All-Ireland,
and that's where it's going to be, and whoever does it will eventually do it in Croke Park. I don't see it happening outside of Croke Park. But from a Tyrone perspective, Mickey Hart would be very, very happy with the way his team worked, and they continuously worked. And his bench, and you need a good bench if you're going to compete with Dublin.
In some respects, for all Tyrone's brilliant work, if they want to progress now, they have to go to Ballybuffet and beat Donegal, which is no small thing. We saw them beat Roscommon 20 points to 13. Michael Murphy with 9 points, playing in close to goal. So is that now Michael Murphy in there, regardless of how they're shaping up in midfield, Donegal? Because I saw John Divley was saying, do Donegal really need Murphy in midfield? Unfortunately, yes is the answer. And he makes the argument that Roscommon actually won much more possession in the second half when Murphy was inside. So he is arguing that Murphy will be needed in the middle third against Tyrone if they're going to compete with Tyrone around that area. And yet, man, you look at some of his points when he gets in close to goal and it's very tempting to stick him in there. So that's one of the big decisions that they're going to have to make ahead of Ballybuffet.
That's the beauty of management. You have these major calls, but he got so much room. It was beyond doubt at times yesterday, and Roscommon tried to have a packed defence. But when you looked at it, the guy that was doing the sweeping wasn't even keeping an eye on Murphy. Oftentimes Murphy came out and looped, and he was getting the balls 30 yards out facing the goal and popping it over. He was getting the ball 25, 30 yards out, man up his ass, he turned left, bang, and there was no double team, no double mark, and you can't give someone that quality. Odrin McNicholas for me was very impressive yesterday. He was an out and out corner forward, and you're going, you know what, I think we might see a little bit more of him and a bit of alternating between himself and Murphy around the middle. But it was like, look at the weekend that we had, and you see the Conor McManus performance, you see the Michael Murphy performance. It's good for the soul. It was absolutely fantastic football.
Yeah.
And it was class personified by a lot of players out in the Super 8s. The Super 8s got a lifeline.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a weekend redemption, and we don't have lame duck. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Not lame.
Lame duck.
Lame duck. Dead duck.
Damn squibs.
Damn squibs. Anyway, the beauties of live radio.
Dead rubbers.
Dead rubbers. Dead rubbers. Dead rubbers.
Dead
Well
duck.
I'm a lame duck manager. Dead rubber games. There we are. How do you see Ballybuffet going, Dara, and where are you putting Michael Murphy?
Well, I've been beating that Michael Murphy as a full forward drum for years. I think it's like having a Picasso on the attic, not putting him out in the field. Okay, he might have got away with the fact that Niall Kilroy was a sweeper the last day and probably wasn't going to challenge him aerially, and there was a lot of components of the Roscommon's defence plan that probably wouldn't have challenged Murphy enough. But we've seen some great double acts in let's say Carter McDonald from Armagh, for example, over the years. Donaghy and Gooch. I think, and I go with David there, I think Michael Murphy and Oran McNeill is a serious threat, regardless of what kind of blanket is around them, in Ballybuffet. And Donegal are hard to beat in Ballybuffet. Yeah. It's been a while. I think it's been 7 years since they've beaten Ballybuffet. And I think much like Donaghy yesterday, and you'll get it from the terraces from Kerry supporters. Will you kick it in? And Donaghy himself senses the odd time, as he did about 3 or 4 minutes before half time, comes out as a platform in midfield, catches the ball. And I get that. But at the end of the day, when things really, hit the fan, where was Donaghy? Right at the edge of the square when you needed a goal. And you see it in soccer, you see it in all sports. Because why do they revert to the desperation all the time? It's in the hope because they recognise it's probably your best chance to get in the score.
Yeah.
And Murphy's best chance to get in the score is at the edge of the square. He's just such a threat. If he loses 3 balls, to catch one, I think that to me is worth.
Declan Bonner deserves great credit for a man that's coming in and not reinventing, but he's nailing his colours to the mast and says if Donegal are to get the most out of Murphy, it needs to be on the scoreboard, not on the stats.
Kevin McStay's having a difficult Super 8, so obviously he lost his composure, to put it politely, yesterday, and he had his hands on the linesman, hands on the official. Certainly, he threw a ball. He says he didn't mean it for sure, but he threw it in the general direction of the head of one of the officials and caught him perfectly. I mean, it was a very unfortunate mistake, but he certainly threw the ball in that direction for sure. He spoke afterwards to Maura Trasany Callig for Off the Ball. Here was his take on things.
To be devil's advocate, the linesman may say he didn't see it, or that wasn't brought to his attention on time, and he might also say, well, perhaps Kevin McStay shouldn't have gotten into my space. It looked like you did lay your hands on him, which we all know is against the rules.
Yeah, well, if he didn't see it, he was the only one in the stadium that didn't see it. It was a completely obvious call. Kieran Brannigan, I imagine, didn't see it because he was the wrong side of it, but the linesman was facing it. But yeah, I've come across a lot of this officiating, over the last 2 years, and some of these linesmen are incredibly precious, and they like to play the hard man when they're on. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just dismiss you like you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion. I put a lot of time into it. Might have been agitated more than I should have been. Like we're all trying to get the win, and a little bit of courtesy from officials. Most of them find it very easy to be courteous and help out any way they can within the rules of it, and some of them then go off, on I don't know what's the term I'm looking for, but less than generous with their time. Let me put it that way.
We could say that possibly happened in the white heat of battle. Though, looking back on it now, would you say you regret your actions, or do you think what you did was the right thing for you and your team?
I apologised. I apologised at half time to the referee. Apparently the ball struck him in the back of the head. That was absolutely an accident. I was throwing the ball back to where I thought the free would be, and then I realised someone said, no, he's called half time, which, I was annoyed, so I came in immediately to apologise. I'd never do that purposely, and by that stage he had said that I'd been aggressive to him, and he was complaining to the referee about it, and I suppose the referee had no option then but to take some action. So it's the one thing this association just can't seem to get right, is officiating, and good officiating where the officials are all tuned in to what's going on around the place. Like, there's an awful lot going on in a football field these days, that isn't even been refed at all. It's just let to the players to sort out.
So we'll park the throwing of the football for a moment, and let's just say don't throw a football in the general direction of officials, but we'll take him at his word that it was an accident. What you can't condone here is not only did he put his hands on the official in a Dermot Connolly-esque way, and probably even a bit worse than Dermot Connolly, but he had run on the field to do so. So, as decent a fella as McStay is, he's actually in big trouble here, lads. I mean, I don't think you can hand Dermot Connolly 12 weeks and let McStay off with anything less, no?
But of all the ex-players and pundits that I've come across in my time in the game, I've never seen a person more respectful of officials than Kevin McStay in the past, and all my dealings with him. That's separate from Saturday's incident. You can get up in your high horse and you can go tut-tutting, as happened last year about Dermot Connolly as well. These things happen. I can associate absolutely what the frustrations that Kevin McStay had, even at club level here, where you're telling a linesman, come on, you saw it. And you know the referee hasn't seen it, and you're saying, come on, and you saw it. And a linesman, it's the easy option for a linesman to say, no, I saw nothing, or, that's not my brief. There's just not enough cooperation between officials, and it's that simple. And I'm not going to go tut-tutting. These things happen in a game. And these things happen in a game. And there are rules there to deal with.
Is there not a culture, though, Dara, is there not a culture, like you saw Andy McEntee completely out of control. In GA, there was a culture with referees being escorted off the pitches, which is slightly embarrassing. And on McStay, thoroughly decent fella. It's just apparent. You can just tell the way he carries himself. He is. But actually, you can't run onto the pitch. Like, this is just embarrassing for the sport, these managers running onto the pitch.
And embarrassing for who, Joe?
For the sport. For the sport, I would say.
But, like nobody's saying, but who's to say that I won't do it next week, or somebody else won't? It happens. Unfortunately, we say it doesn't happen in rugby and it doesn't happen in other sports, and we're not like them. We're different. This is Gaelic games. It happens. And it's unfortunate that culture is there. But at the same time, you can be trying to say, let's clean this up and let's clean that up and let's make everything clinical. This madness is beautiful in the game. I think we should cherish it. Like, I'm not saying to go out there and lamp or linesman or anything like that, but these things happen in the heat of GAA championship games, hurling and football, and
there's clinical and there's lads running on the pitch, and like it runs. What runs downhill, and we see it in the club game as well. Like, well, let's have the more interesting discussion then. Should there be a gradient on the punishment? So one of the issues with Connolly last year was it was 12 weeks and there was just no room for manoeuvre there. So should there be a bit more room for manoeuvre when you're actually dishing out the punishment?
There should be consistency. You should be comparing like with like at all times, of course. And I'm sure McStay will accept that if and when he does get punished. But I don't think there's tut-tutting and who condones what and who did what to who. These things happen, and it's not something anybody wants. But they happen. And they're unexplainable. That madness you can't explain. You're in the heat of championship football, and it happens.
For the record, and I accept you're not necessarily levelling it at us, we're absolutely not tut-tutting. It's absolutely understandable why it happens. Nobody thinks necessarily less of Kevin McStay here. But actually, there's an issue for the GA in that they have to be consistent about enforcing the rules now.
Well, see, the rule is, and if I'm right in remembering what happened to Dermot last year, that if it's dealt with at the time by the referee, that's deemed appropriate. If it's not dealt at the time by the referee, it's reviewed, and that's why Dermot got the 12 weeks.
Fair point.
And it was very, very hard. Very harsh on Dermot.
Yeah.
Now, Kevin, I don't know, as he got into politics, from that I couldn't understand. From what I take, and from what I asked today, is that Kevin was sent off. So it was deemed to be officiated by the referee.
Now, he said at the time he was asked just to sit in the stand politely as opposed to being sent off.
No, he said that the referee dealt with it. We'll have to wait for the referee's report, but he said the referee dealt with it. He's a very, very passionate man, and you won't keep a passionate man sitting down on the bench by asking him. So, if the rule book, if it's not dealt in the current time, it's reviewed. If it's dealt, it's deemed appropriate by the referee at the time. Look at Kevin himself said it was wrong.
Sure.
And how many managers encroach on a pitch? And I don't.
None in any other field sports that we watch regularly is the.
Oh no, as in no, but.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're not them, but we're all human beings, Dara. Like, I mean, it's not like Joe Schmidt has made up a different stuff to Kevin McStay. He cares just as much.
Yeah, but there's a difference. There's professional sports and there's amateur sports. Nobody wants that, Joe. Let's all be clear about that. And
Yeah.
I think all three of us here in this conversation, nobody wants that to be happening. But the fact that it happens, and then there are procedures there to deal with it, and I'm sure that's what will happen in this case. But at the same time, I think it's comparing apples and oranges when you compare, Kevin McStay to Joe Schmidt. Yes, they're human beings, but you're talking about different sports, different traditions, different cultures, different reactions, different punishments, different everything. You
like the bit of madness, is what you're telling me.
I do, yeah. I like that aspect of the GAA, and I like the fact that when somebody does go out offside, they get punished. That's the reality of it. And it's just we're different. We're not like any other sports in the world. And I know there'll be people outside the GAA saying, "Well, that's why the GAA is the way it is." But that's partly why I like it.
Yeah. I mean, I do see where... final word to you, David, because I want to get a word quickly in Kildare, Galway. Absolutely see where Dara's coming from. I do. You don't want things too clinical and sanitised to the point of just being uninteresting to everyone. At the same time, there is a discipline problem which runs right through the GAA. And actually, you can't have officials... manhandled is too strong, because he did... it's not like it was aggressive, but it was you're kind of half pushing him. You're on the pitch, not to tut-tut, but I mean, something's going to have to happen here, surely.
Well, if it was dealt by the referee at the time, on occasion he was told, "You're sent off."
And that's that.
That's that.
Would you have a problem with that?
Would I have a problem with it?
That's fair enough punishment for him?
At the end of the day, it's not. I'm not the judge. I'm only the jury, and what I seen was it was a total overreaction by Kevin, and he'd got it. The frustration wasn't from today. I think it was from last week, getting bet by 18 points in Tyrone, and knowing that they had an opportunity in the last 10 minutes to come back, and they missed 3 or 4 opportunities. I think that's Kevin's frustration. But it wasn't right, and Kevin would know it wasn't right.
He admitted as much there, in fairness to him.
He's hanging around with Liam McHale too much. That was as good a basketball throw as I seen.
I mean, it's the most unfortunate accident I've ever seen.
Look, from a Roscommon perspective, they were totally out of their depth in the Tyrone game. They were there and involved for vast parts of it against a very good Donegal team, but it will benefit them. They're a young team that has learned a harsh lesson in getting to the Super 8. But are you telling me that any Roscommon person or player or manager would say, "You know what, we regret progressing to the Super 8s"? No,
I wouldn't think so, to be honest.
Not at all.
Before we go, literally 1 minute if you can, we'll talk about Galway in a bit more depth again. Kildare have signed off effectively out of the championship. Obviously they have the Kerry game to come, but their chances of progression are gone. Cian O'Neill said it was a shocking decision, the Daniel Flynn red card, and that obviously had a bearing on the game. He went in the 46th minute. How will Kildare feel about 2018 in the end, Dara?
A certain amount of progress. I think they'll be relatively pleased. I think they've developed some of their younger players. I think they've found positions for other players. I think, after losing to Carlow, it could have all gone pear-shaped, and I think there was a certain amount of redemption and atonement there. And I think when they look back on it, they'll say, could we have probably done more in the Super 8? Possibly, and there could be a sting in them still, and they're playing for pride now below Killarney. But I think overall, after losing to Carlow in May and coming back the way they did, they'll say there's a bit of stuff in them all the time.
Yeah, very quickly on that game.
You know what? People were saying that the Super 8 was going to benefit the stronger panels, the Dublins of this world. A rising tide has lifted this boat. And for me, what I seen yesterday was an absolutely fantastic game of football between Kildare and Galway. It had everything that you'd want. But the one thing I see in Galway, I see All-Ireland potential. And whether it's this year or next year, like the spread of scores from 13 players, you have the Walshes, you have Comer. Comer hasn't shot the lights out.
Yeah, numbers 5 to 15 all scored, 16 of the 19 points from play.
Ian Burke, you know what? He was involved in the vast amount of what was good. He only scored a point from play, but I have to say, for me, for the first time, my light went on yesterday, and I went, you know what? These guys have serious potential in the next 6 weeks. Or in the next 2 years, they're up there with the best of them now.
Okay, well they're on course to avoid Dublin in the semi-final. David, thanks a million for coming in. Dara, appreciate it. Thanks a million.
Not at all, Joe.